There's a word hiding inside the thing that you do every day, and almost nobody who does it knows what it means. Trahere. It's Latin. It means to drag, to draw out, to pull a thing from one place to another against its own inclination. It's the root of the word training, and for most of its life, it had nothing to do with bodies or barbells. You trained a vine. You took a living thing growing wherever it pleased, and you drew it out slowly and deliberately in a direction it would have never gone on its own. That's what the word actually means. The act of drawing a living thing out of its current state and into a new one. So here's the question this whole video is going to chew on. When you walked into the gym this morning, were you dragging yourself somewhere new, or were you just moving around inside the pen? There's a second word, and we treat it like a synonym, and it isn't. Exercise, from the Latin exercere. It means to keep busy, to drive on, to keep at work. Break it open, and it's ex, which means out, plus acere, to confine or to fence in. So literally, it means to unpen, to drive a confined animal out into the yard and keep it moving so it doesn't go slack. That's the original use. Drilling soldiers, driving animals to labor, keeping the thing active. And notice what's missing from that definition, which is a direction. Trahere relocates the organism. Exercere only refuses to let it settle. One pulls you somewhere, the other just keeps you from sinking. And once you hear that difference, you cannot unhear it, because you start to see which one is actually happening in every gym you walk into. Here's how I draw the line, and I want you to sit with this because the rest of the video hangs on it, since this is one of the most eye-opening distinctions that I was able to make about my own training and exercise. Training is using your psychological and sensational capability to alter your physiological state. Exercise is using your physical capability to alter your psychological and emotional state. They run in opposite directions. Training goes inside out. Your intention and your attention drag your body towards a capacity it doesn't have yet. Exercise goes outside in. You move your body, and the movement changes how you feel and then how you think. Both are good. Both are absolutely worth doing, but they cannot happen at the same time or at the same intensity in the same session. And almost everyone is trying to do both at once and getting neither. So let's leave the dictionary and let's go into the skull, because the neuroscience has caught up with the etymology in a way that makes all of this more real than just a language lesson. There's a region of the brain called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, or the aMCC. The aMCC sits deep in the frontal lobe, wrapped around the corpus callosum, and it's one of the most densely connected hubs in the entire brain. It's a rich club node, the researchers call it. Everything routes through it. And here's what a team led by Lisa Feldman Barrett laid out in 2020 review in the journal Cortex. The paper's called The Tenacious Brain. The aMCC is the cost-benefit engine. It's the part of you that runs the calculator. Is this effort worth the energy it's going to cost me? And then it decides whether you push or whether you quit. But that's not the surprising part, or even the part that interested me. This is, the aMCC grows. It physically gets bigger. It's hypertrophy of your brain tissue, specifically when you do things that you don't want to do. Not when you exercise for fun, not when you do the thing you're already good at. It grows when you override yourself. The research shows it's larger in athletes, larger in people who've successfully dieted against their own appetite, and it shrinks in obesity and in depression. So that is the neuroscience of training. That's Trahere, the drag, sitting in your brain as a measurable piece of tissue, the organ of pulling yourself somewhere you don't want to go. And it answers to one thing and one thing only: the willingness to move against your own resistance. You cannot grow that structure with comfort. Comfort is exactly the signal it ignores. So when I tell you training has to come from the inside, that intention is the mechanism, and not the decoration. I'm not being poetic. There's a part of your brain that only turns on when the instruction comes from the top down, from you, from the decision to proceed when everything in you is voting to withdraw. So let's get into the muscle and the blood, because the same pattern shows up there too. Same story, different tissue. There's a molecule called BDNF. It's brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of it as fertilizer for your nervous system. It drives the growth of new neurons, new connections, the literal rewiring we call learning. Some have tied higher BDNF to better cognition and neural protection. Exercise raises it. We've known that for a while. But here's the detail that matters in relation to training versus exercise. BDNF doesn't respond to movement, it responds to intensity. The studies are consistent on this. Researchers put people on a bike for 30 minutes at an easy pace, below their ventilatory threshold, and BDNF barely moves. Then they push the intensity up over that threshold, and it climbs significantly. So 10 minutes of a warm-up, no notable change. A genuine ramp test to hard effort, the needle jumps. High-intensity interval work produces a larger spike than the same time spent at a comfortable, continuous pace. So there's a threshold. Below it, you can move for as long as you like and the adaptive signals stay quiet. Above it, the body finally goes, oh, this matters. Change something. So this is the molecular version of the word. The body does not adapt to activity, it adapts to a signal strong enough to convince it that what it can do right now is not enough. You have to train in order to get the benefits. And this is where the muddle kills people. The most common training week I see is warm up with some cardio, stretch for a while, do mobility, do a heavy lift, throw in some isolation bodybuilding work to support, finish with some conditioning, a bunch of things. It's real effort, it's real sweat, and not one of those signals is loud enough or clean enough to drag any single system across its threshold. It's a little of everything, and as a result, very little or almost no adaptation. You looked like you trained, sure, but the blood says you just took a walk. So if the signal has to come from inside, from intention, from the willingness to cross a threshold you can feel but can't see, then here's how we ensure we can do it. We protect intensity. So most people who try to train can't, and it has nothing to do with effort or desire. We're taught that action runs in one direction, thought, then feeling, and then action. You think your way into being motivated. The motivation produces the feeling produces the work. And that can work, but only for someone who already has a deep practical command over their own internal state. For everyone else, it runs backwards and breaks. The thinking never resolves into feeling. The feeling never becomes drive. And the session quietly collapses to something far below what would actually move you, while you're still telling yourself that you're training. There's an old lesson I keep coming back to. It's the lion tamer in a cage. It's the iconic carnival scene with a mustachioed man in a top hat facing an enormous beast. Most people think that the whip is the tool. It isn't. The real tool is the stool, the legs pointed at the lion's face. The story goes that the cat tries to focus on all four legs at once, and in the attempt to track everything, it can't commit to anything, and so it freezes. That's the untrained mind walking into a hard set. A thought arrives, this is going to hurt. A sensation arrives, the first bite of load, and the person tries to track all of it at once, can't commit to any of it, and it freezes, backs off, grinds mindlessly, or bails. The raw reaction to effort hijacks the whole thing before any real signal gets sent. The unconditioned reaction to effort is flinch, brace, escape, and it supersedes the stimulus that was strong enough to reshape you. This is why when I take on somebody new, we spend what feels like an absurd amount of time on nothing but sensation. What does this effort actually feel like? What's the thought that showed up right before you quit? Because until you can hold a single thought and aim it at an objective while your body is screaming, training will stay out of reach because you've never learned to steer. So what do you do if you can't steer yet? You go the other direction on purpose. You use exercise as the apprenticeship to training. You start with the inverse sequence. action, then feeling, then thought. You move before you're motivated, and you can do that because there's no judgment in it. There's no threshold you're failing to hit. I can slow down, I can pause, I can stop at any point. The movement changes how I feel. The feeling reshapes my state. These small wins are what grows the aMCC slowly but surely. And do that for long enough, months, honestly, and something accumulates. You build the exact interoceptive vocabulary that top-down training requires. You learn what your own signals feel like so that one day you can send one on purpose. Exercise isn't the lesser cousin of training. It's the apprenticeship that makes training possible at all, which reframes that "I train hard every day" crowd. They're serious about the hard. There's no question it feels hard, but there's little evidence they're dragging themselves into a new state. So we don't call it training, we call it fatigue resistance. And here's the cruel part. They are adapting just to the demand of repeating the same insufficient stimulus over and over, while the tissue underneath stays exactly where it was. And because they're locked on to the word hard, they don't even collect the one thing that exercise reliably gives, which is a real shift in their psychological state. They get neither adaptation. They just get fatigue. So I'll leave you with the simplest test I know, the one that kind of cuts through all of it. If you genuinely trained, if you sent a signal strong enough to demand that your body become something that it wasn't, you will not be able to repeat it tomorrow. That's the tell. Being too fatigued to run it back the next day means you did enough. And now the other side of the coin has to drop, which is recovery. That's why real training can't be a daily act. It's not a rule I'm imposing on you. It's a consequence of having actually done it. So 3 days a week, give or take, you drag yourself somewhere new if you know where you're dragging yourself towards. That's using your mind to move your physiology. And the other days, you move the body to change how you feel. You partake in unrestricted movement. You keep the body from going slack. You exercise. You just can't confuse the two. One of them is the vine being drawn along the wire, becoming something it couldn't have become alone. The other is just pacing the yard, helping slowly change how you feel and how your brain relates to movement. The effort was never the problem. The direction was.